Following the death of Bill Lovett, the leadership of the White Hand Gang fell to Bill's friend and brother-in-law, Richard "Pegleg" Lonergan. Lonergan would take the gang in a different direction that the gang had done with the previous leaders. Under Dinny Meehan, the gang primarily worked the Brooklyn docks. Under Lovett, the gang kept the rackets on the docks and started bootlegging alcohol. Under Lonergan, the gang's primary source of income came from bootlegging but also kept their hands in the dock rackets. Lonergan didn't have the same leadership qualities as Meehan or the Iron Fist of Lovett. The gang under Lonergan had slightly diminished as a result. Richard Lonergan was born in January 1920 to John and Mary Lonergan. Richard was one of 13 children. He was born into a crime dynasty. Richard's uncle was the leader of the Yaki Yake gang in the Corlears Hook neighborhood on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. The Yaki Yakes battled for control of their territory with Paul Kelly's 5 Points gang, from the 5 Points neighborhood, and Monk Eastman's gang from the Upper East Side. Lonergan's father John was a prizefighter and also an active member of the Yaki Yakes until the gang broke up soon after John Brady fled the Lower East Side for New Jersey. John Lonergan moved his family to Irishtown on Brooklyn. When Richard Lonergan was 9 years old, he was involved in an accident with a streetcar. Lonergan lost the lower part of his leg and would then use a prosthetic leg. This would lead his now infamous nickname, Peg Leg. He successfully sued the streetcar company and was awarded $6,200. Richard opened up a bicycle store on Bridge Street and would eventually get the contract to repair the bicycles of the New York Telephone Company. The bicycle store brought in good money. Richard's father also worked in the shop, however, he didn't do much. According to Mrs. Lonergan, he was a loafer. According to some stories, a neighborhood gangster named Frank Bonanzo would come into the shop and wanted Richard to allow him use his store as a front to sell drugs, and to possibly extort money from him. It's said that Richard beat Bonanzo and threw him out of the store. Enraged, Bonanzo sent someone into the shop with a stolen bike. Bonanzo then told the police where the stolen bike was, leading police to raid the shop and arrest Richard. When Richard was released from police custody, Bonanzo came back to the store where a fight broke out and Lonergan shot Bonanzo in self-defense. Lonergan told police that when the pair met at Tillery Street and Hudson Avenue, Bonanzo immediately tried to shake him down. Lonergan refused and Bonanzo pulled a gun. Lonergan struggled with Bonanzo and Manged to shoot him in the abdomen, that he shot Bonanzo in self-defense. Lonergan got away. The police initially, however, arrested the wrong man, Sabino Palumbo, who was known to have fallen out with Bonanzo over the proceeds of crime. They arrested Lonergan in a follow-up. The police disputed Lonergan's plea of self-defense. Lonergan was sent to the workhouse for a year. While there, Lonergan became friends with Eddie Lynch. Eddie Lynch was one of Bill Lovett's gang and then introduced Lonergan to Lovett. Lonergan would become an integral and trusted lieutenant to Lovett, bailing him out when needed or being arrested together. Lovett fell in love with Lonergan's sister Anna, who had visited him in the police station while Lovett and Lonergan were being held, and Lovett would eventually marry her. Richard's father John Lonergan was a brutal and violent drunk, who would regularly beat his kids and his wife. Richard was the main earner in the family, while his younger sister Helen would provide $11 a week working in a department store. However, this wasn't enough to support a large family, especially when their father was drinking the money earned from the bicycle shop. According to Mary Lonergan, he beat her and kids regularly in a drunken rage, breaking Mary's arm one time, splitting her head another. He would often leave them with nothing. John Lonergan had received $6,000 inheritance from his sister. He spent it all on women and drink. Another time the family knew a big payday was coming. That day Mary Lonergan had sent Anna to the bicycle shop to get money from her father for the family. Enraged, the father beat Anna. She came home bloody, with a black eye and sobbing. Mary Lonergan stormed down to the bicycle shop where she confronted the father. He then proceeded to beat her. At some point in the struggle a gun was produced. Mary Lonergan got her hand on the gun, pulled the trigger and shot and killed her husband. Mary Lonergan was brought to the police station, while an investigation was held. Richard Lonergan arrived at the police station to protest and to confess to the shooting of his father. However, Mary Lonergan had confessed to the crime and Richard's pleas were rejected. At the same time that Mary Lonergan was being held in jail, Bill Lovett was also being held in jail for a violation of the Sullivan Act. Police officers raided a restaurant where Lovett and a bunch of his men were drinking. As officers walked in, Lovett allegedly threw a gun. It was supposedly found near where he was sitting. Mary Lonergan would be found not guilty and acquitted of the murder of her husband, while in the same week Bill Lovett was freed on a $5,000 bail on the gun charge. Lovett married Anna Lonergan the day he was released from jail. In July 1923, Richard Lonergan would get a 3-month sentence along with some of his men after they were arrested for disorderly conduct, after police raided a bungalow in Coney Island. Later in 1923, Bill Lovett was murdered, and Peg Leg Lonergan assumed control of the White Hand Gang. While the gang focused more on the bootlegging operation under Peg Leg, the murders and inter-gang warfare continued. Police believed that some men around the docks were making moves to claim Lovett's place. John Travers was murdered at Deadmont's Corner on John and Jay Streets. 3 men were later arrested for the murder, one of them Mattie Martin. Mattie Martin had married Anna Lonergan 8 months after Bill Lovett's death. Martin would feature more prominently in the gang as a result. Big Ed Gilchrist was another one of the men police believed had been trying to muscle in on the waterfront, collecting $2 from the dock loaders working on the waterfront. However, as he was leaving a restaurant in 1924, unidentified gunmen chased and shot Gilchrist, shooting him 3 times, once in the lung. Gilchrist managed to dump his own gun into a bin before crawling outside. 4 people inside the restaurant, who witnessed the shooting, all left before police got there. Gilchrist refused to name his attackers, simply saying that he would sort it out his own way. Lonergan and George Smitty Wallace were both arrested when police, acting on a tip-off from a neighbor, raided a house where Lonergan and his gang were hanging out. Police beat down the door and entered with guns drawn. Inside they found up to 20 men. They were all put against the wall and searched. Police found a gun on Wallace and a pocket full of bullets on Lonergan. They found 4 loaded revolvers in a rear yard. Peg Leg Lonergan was arrested again in 1925. According to Detective O'Donnell, who was traveling in a streetcar, saw a drunken Lonergan fighting in the street. When he went to investigate, Lonergan challenged him to a fight, which he accepted. The two fought for an entire block from Marcy Avenue to Tompkins Avenue, where Detective O'Donnell finally subdued Lonergan. A resident of the street called police, who then arrived from every angle to arrest Lonergan. He was held on $500 bail for disorderly conduct. Like all of the previous leaders of the gang, they had their lives cut short. However, unlike the previous leaders of the gang who died as a result of intergang warfare, Lonergan would lose his life to the Italians, in the infamous Adonis Social Club shooting on Christmas night in 1925. On Christmas night, Lonergan and some of his men, Aaron Harms, Needles Ferry, James Hart, Joseph Howard and Patrick Maloney, had gone out for a night of heavy drinking. At some point the group began arguing amongst themselves. They arrived at the Adonis Social Club in a highly drunken state, still arguing as they entered. The details of what happened next are still kind of sketchy. The popular theory is that Peg Leg Lonergan was a bigot and hated Italians. While they were inside the Adonis Social Club, a group of men and some women entered the club. Enraged by seeing the women with Italians, Lonergan chased the women out of the club and was shouting racial slurs, telling the women to come back with white men. The lights were switched off and the shooting started. However, upon further research, there is no mention of this in any newspapers at the time. According to the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, eyewitnesses to what happened explained what they had seen. The 2 eyewitnesses were Alice Callahan, a cigarette girl, and Mae Wilson, a cabaret singer, who told police that Lonergan's group were sitting at a table, and sitting at a table across from them were 4 other men. Needles Ferry was summoned to the table with the 4 Italians. Words were exchanged. And then the lights went out and the shooting started. By the time the shooting stopped, Aaron Harms and Peg-Leg Lonergan were dead on the floor, while Needles Ferry was dead outside. All the other occupants of the social club had vanished. The two eyewitnesses left, hailed a taxi and went home. Patrolman Richard Morano, who was on patrol in the area, found the body of Needles Ferry outside with a trail of blood going back into the building. It's believed that Ferry was shot in the face and stomach and was left outside by his friends. Patrolman Morano went inside to investigate, where he found the bodies of Peg-Leg Lonergan and Aaron Harms lying side by side. They were shot in the head and chest. A gun was found near Peg-Leg's body, while another was found near Aaron Harms and two more behind the bar. James Hart was found wounded further away from the Adonis Social Club. He had been shot in the leg, ear and hand. Hart was brought to the hospital and would claim that he was shot from a passing car. However, he was identified by the two eyewitnesses. Patrick Maloney and Joseph Howard were also identified by the eyewitnesses. They were arrested later. Police then start rounding up the other suspects. The following day, Anthony Disso, Furry Agaglia and the barman John Stibble were taken into custody. Later, Ralph D'Amato, George Carrozza, Frank Piazza and Al Capone were taken into custody and held. Al Capone was born in Brooklyn before moving to Chicago. He was visiting from Chicago at the time. All were released without charge due to lack of evidence. Richard Peg-Leg Lonergan's funeral attracted numbers between 1,000 and 2,000 mourners. Matty Martin, who was now the presumed leader of the gang, was arrested at the funeral. Martin and Frank Gurcasino had been threatening reporters who they thought were taking photographs. Police from the gangster squad searched Matty Martin and found a revolver in his pocket. They were also wanted in connection to a robbery the previous November.